Okay, so you're here because you want to understand what's going on with this whole Kulman Ghising thing in Nepal.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case. I think a lot of people were really surprised by this.
Yeah, and this is something we've been following pretty closely, trying to get all the information we can. So we've got, reports from Nepali media. We've got some NEA documents that we've been looking at.
And of course, we're drawing on a lot of expert commentary and analysis from folks who've been watching this situation unfold for a while.
Exactly. So our goal here is to really understand, what led to Ghising's removal as the managing director of the Nepal Electricity Authority and what this could signal, for the direction of Nepal's energy policy going forward.
Yeah, I think there are some pretty big questions here. And yeah, let's dig in. I guess the first thing is just to remind everybody who Kulman Gissing is and why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. So,
I mean, Gissing is an engineer by training, and he really made a name for himself when he came in to head the NEA back in 2016.
and I mean, before that, the power situation in Nepal was,
It was rough, right? Like rolling blackouts were a daily occurrence. People called it load shedding.
people had to plan their whole lives around when the power might be out.
Yeah, and Gissing came in and really turned things around. I mean, he brought a level of stability to the grid that people hadn't seen in years.
Yeah, he got the lights back on
Yeah.
and he started making real progress on all these hydropower projects that had kind of been stalled.
Yeah, and at the same time, he developed this reputation for being, you know, a really effective manager, someone who was honest and just got things done.
Not afraid to, step on some toes to get things done.
Yeah, and that's a really important point because that kind of leads us to why his recent removal is, so controversial.
Yeah, so let's get into that. I mean, what did the sources tell us about why he was dismissed?
Well, I think there are a few threads here, and they're all interconnected.
Yeah,
One of the big ones is political pressure. Gissing was known for running the NEA pretty independently.
right. Doing what he thought was best for the organization.
Exactly, and our sources suggest that there were some political leaders who weren't happy with that.
Yeah.
They wanted more control over things like who got contracts for hydropower projects.
So it sounds like he might have been a little too good at his job.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely effective, but in doing so, he may have ruffled some feathers.
Yeah, and then there's the whole corruption angle, right?
Right. I mean, that was another big part of Gissing's tenure. Yeah, he came in and really cracked down on corruption within the NEA.
Which was pretty rampant before he got there. I mean, it was no secret.
Yeah, and I mean, good for him, right? He took the stand and he cleaned things up, but it's not hard to imagine that he made some enemies along the way, people who are benefiting from the old system.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you disrupt the status quo,
Hmm.
you're going to make some people unhappy, even if you're doing the right thing.
Right. And then on top of all of that, you have the broader political context, like in a lot of countries when a new government comes in.
They want to put their own people in charge.
Sure. Yeah, there's often this kind of reshuffling of leadership positions in state-owned organizations.
So some people are saying this is just, politics as usual.
Right, that Giesing's removal is just part of this pattern of political appointments.
Okay, so we've got the political pressure, the anti-corruption drive, and the sort of changing political landscape. Are those the main
Yeah,
factors?
those are the big ones, yeah.
And, I mean, how has the public reacted to all of this?
I mean, there's been a lot of anger. A lot of people feel like Gissing was removed precisely because he was resistant to political interference and because he was, trying to do things the right way.
Yeah, so they see it as a real loss.
Definitely. And that public outcry, I think, speaks volumes about the kind of respect that Gissing had built up. He was seen as someone who was actually trying to make things better for the country.
But what about the experts? What are the energy experts and the economists saying about all this?
Yeah, I mean, they're expressing some serious concerns. Their main worry is that this could have a really negative impact on Nepal's electricity system. They're arguing that removing a leader like Gissing, especially for what are seen as political reasons,
It could destabilize things.
right, and potentially even hinder future development. It sends a message that political connections are more important than competence and experience.
So this isn't just about one guy losing his job.
No, it's much bigger than that. It's about the future of Nepal's energy sector and really about how the country is going to balance political influence with the need for, competent and effective governance.
So it really raises the question of, does politics trump merit and integrity? in a system like this, and what are the long-term consequences of that?
Exactly. And I think that's something that's worth thinking about in any context, not just in Nepal, but anywhere where you have these kinds of essential services that are being managed by the government or by state-owned organizations.
Yeah, how do we ensure that we're getting the best people in these positions, regardless of their political affiliations?
Right. And what are the risks when political considerations start to override everything else?
So this is a deep dive that's going to keep on giving. I think there's a lot more to unpack here and a lot more to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out in the coming months and years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing you might find interesting is to look at, the history of leadership changes in Nepal's energy sector, or even compare it to how similar organizations in other countries have dealt with these kinds of transitions.
That's a great point. There's definitely a lot to be learned from looking at how different systems approach this challenge.
All right, well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of you for listening. As always, stay curious and keep digging.